committee. I'll just take the floor for a few minutes. I'm Terry Howard with Municipal Broadband. We're a strategic partner of CenturyLink and of CICLU. And our goal here is to make the city leadership aware of things that have happened with in the world, in this industrial revolution that I believe we're going through in communications, and all the benefits that it brings to the communities. And this community in particular could use a facelift, and we're looking at alternatives for lifting that face, and I think this could be a good one. I happened to see Chip Swisher's presentation for the IT department of and leadership of the City of Los Angeles a few weeks ago. I was extremely impressed with CenturyLink taking a leadership position, especially for cities. And I invited him to come out and make a presentation to you. He accepted, which I'm happy to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Frank is our local representative for government in Simi Valley, residing in Simi Valley. So I hope you'll be as impressed as I was with what CenturyLink is doing. Let me also introduce Craig with CICLU. We conducted a meeting here a couple months ago and talked about their 5G radios and them having 70% of the market in the world. So we think they're the right partner to be talking to in terms of 5G deliverance when that day comes about for us. So, and gentlemen here, I don't think you were in our last meeting.
No, I'm Aaron Weimar. I'm the IT manager for the city.
For the city, right. I think you were out that day.
Oh, okay.
So sorry about that, but you'll catch up here fast. And so with that, let me introduce Chip. And Chip has a presentation he'd like to lead you through, and I think it's going to enlighten you as to what's possible, you know, and what they're doing about it.
And I want to make sure that you guys ask questions, there's things that we don't understand in terms of the technology or how to connect dots. This is what we want to do, is make sure that you have sort of a good vision as to what we're accomplishing and what we're able to do in other companies. We're excited to be here, so thank you for the audience. And again, we want to make sure that whatever we're presenting is connecting with you. So give and take.
Yeah, and obviously we'll keep it as interactive as we can. You know, we'll definitely, as we go, you know, chime in with questions. I think we got plenty of time scheduled, so we've got. How long do we have, by the way?
I think I booked it for 90 minutes.
Okay, that's about right. Okay, like I say, we can definitely get through the content, and if there's questions, again, ask as we go, because it may not be self-evident when you get further through some of the later steps. So as a point of introduction, so Chip Swisher, I run a group within CenturyLink called our Smart Solutions portfolio. And so it's a collection of different practices and capabilities that we have that are vertically aligned. And really what our focus is what we call full stack solutions. And so obviously well known for our core telecom assets and things like that. But on top of that, my group layers on wireless connectivity. And so wireless connectivity in this context could be your traditional 802.11 Wi-Fi type solution, or a number of different low bandwidth technologies that are out there as well that play in very well, especially in the city space, in terms of being able to provide wide-ranging kind of low bandwidth connectivity for different use cases, and we'll talk about some of those as we go. Smart devices, sensors, etc. is kind of the next layer. So anything that's out, deployed out in one of these different vertical areas that's generating data and bringing information out of it. And so we use the wireless connectivity and the fixed wireline connectivity to backhaul that information to a central cloud location where we do data analytics on that information, and then bring that data analytics forward via a variety of different applications. So we'll talk about some of those in terms of the smart city context. So 5 main verticals that we focus in right now, and there's kind of some offshoots of that, those different verticals. So we've got the topic of this conversation, which is smart cities. And so it's cities, communities, college campuses, a lot of similarities and overlaps within that market. We've got smart building, and so technology that's deployed inside. So obviously a little bit of overlap there with smart city as well. So you've got smart city. We talk a lot about Infrastructure, things outside, out in the community, and the building would be deployed, inside of, an office building, apartment complex, city building, whatever. Smart venue, and so focused on arenas and stadiums and conference centers. Smart hospitality, focused on larger hotel properties, so not really the 100-room Holiday Inn. It's really the 500 and up sized large hotel and casino type property. So it just happens that Las Vegas, Orlando, Phoenix are all in our core service markets, so there's a lot of opportunities in those markets for that capability. And then finally, smart fleet. And so that could be anything from police vehicles to buses to trucks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Anything that gets deployed within a vehicle and tracks information about what's going on in that vehicle, et cetera. And so that's a little bit what I do. Frank, you introduce yourself already?
Yeah, the account manager from CenturyLink can cover pretty much greater Southern California area for both cities, counties, and university marketplace.
All right. So again, we kind of covered most of this in terms of the approach. So from a smart solution standpoint, really, it's all about creating unique experiences or unique business values for our customers. And so also within here, we talk a lot about in the city context is opportunities to increase revenue or to reduce costs as well, are all mixed in with all those different use cases as well. So within that, we offer kind of full end-to-end life cycle. So anywhere from upfront, advisory services to strategic consulting to vendor selection, program planning, going into implementation, project implementation, and then ongoing operations and maintenance is also in scope for what we offer. So, goals to
Chip, they're not, I'm not sure that they're familiar with CenturyLink,
sure.
so why don't you tell them a little bit about CenturyLink and what the latest is?
So everyone know who AT&T and Verizon are?
Sure.
Yep. So we're number 3.
Wow.
So we
They
do,
try harder.
soon actually be number 2. And so with the we're in the process of doing a $30+ billion acquisition of Level 3. And so after we do that, we'll actually be the second largest wireline carrier in the U.S. It will leapfrog Verizon. And so we're made up of former U.S. West territories, as well as Quest so Quest bought U.S. West, and then CenturyTel, which is a smaller regional carrier. They bought Embark, which was Sprint's wireline capability, and then we merged. Quest merged with CenturyLink back in 2010, 2009 timeframe, and now we're buying Level 3. And so we'll be, again, the second largest wireline carrier in the U.S.
So we're about a $18 billion company, 40,000 employees worldwide.
Yep.
So
Today.
Today, and
Yeah.
again, it's going to spike up a little bit.
Yeah, so we had another 10,000 employees and another 10, 12 billion in revenue. So,
Wow.
So we'll be.
What is it with you guys buying all the Denver-based companies?
That's where we started. Yeah.
Hopefully that means that we'll move out of Monroe.
Yeah.
So our current corporate headquarters is in Monroe, Louisiana.
Oh, okay.
So,
Oh, God.
so you know your geography.
So just maybe another frame of reference. So the Level 3 company they're buying, their main assets primarily are fiber under the ground, worldwide.
Yep.
Worldwide.
So they also own Global Crossing, Global Crossing.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the cables that go internationally will be our assets now. I think right now we carry 40% of the world's internet
No, I think
traffic.
it's 20. I mean, I don't know.
20%.
Yeah.
But I think afterwards we're going to
Yeah.
It's
So that's
great.
important to note, that, and what the main asset they have from the standpoint of how it benefits the city is they have what we call in the industry drains. So that's all this information drains into the internet. And a lot of people, there's not many people that actually have these drains. So the priority, the people that own the drains get the priority, and then they sell off their excess. So that's a real advantage in terms of capability and speed.
So we manage the whole network. It's our network. We're not connecting to someone else to go on the internet. We are pretty much a tier 1 internet service provider. So there's a lot of value behind that. So not only do we do a lot of data transport, a lot of different products, both public and private connectivity. We're a large voice carrier too, so voice over IP is all within our, our circle of excellence, if you will. Because we need to create connections with customers, we also represent a number of leading edge manufacturers, so the Ciscos, the Edtrans, the Junipers, all the security accoutrements that you'd put on the end of a network. That's part and parcel of what we do. Another big vertical is going to be in the hosting and co-location areas. So we have access to 60 plus data centers worldwide. We do some of the most, we do a lot of business with the federal government.
They're our largest customer. We do a little over $1 billion a year now.
Right.
Wow.
The federal government.
University of California as a customer. They just essentially signed with CenturyLink for all of their medical centers to house in one of our data centers that we're a part owner in Southern California, in Orange County. So very strong managed services and security practice. We have one of the best chief security officers, Dave Mahan, who's worked for the military. He's very, very well integrated with the federal government, does a lot of consulting for the White House. And so
And various three-letter agencies.
yeah, and exactly. So just a tremendous portfolio, and really this one is sort of putting all those together. We've got the network, and we're packing it with intelligence. And now that every device now is an IP address that's connected, we're finding ways to sort of monetize that value, that data. We also acquired, and I don't know if it's probably in there, but we acquired an analytics company because we recognize there's so much data that's flowing, and customers want to know how to harness the power of that data so that you guys can make informed decisions and help grow, the tax base, whatever we can do to help bring commerce back. And so, anyway, this vertical is really exciting to talk about.
Yeah, and so from a analogy that we use heavily is called the House of CenturyLink. And so if you think of kind of the core services that we've offered for 80 plus years is our telephony network. Layered on top of that through acquisition and other organic growth and partnerships. We now have kind of all the different vertical offerings that you need in order to put together an end-to-end full stack solution. Everything from doing low voltage cabling or routing and switching. We've got the capability of doing compute, whether it be on-site or in the cloud. As Frank mentioned, we acquired Savvis a few years ago, and so we picked up all of their data center assets, and so we have that capability. And then, as we talked about, wireless connectivity, being able to go out and deploy smart devices out over wide geographic areas. We can do that as well. Security, Frank mentioned, data analytics, applications, all that stuff. Then, as I mentioned before, layered on top of that is what my team focuses the most on is bringing it all together, and bringing it all under a single umbrella or under a single roof, which is the program management services, to be able to integrate all those capabilities and deliver it as a single program to you guys. And so in essence, a lot of cities, when they think about smart city, they go to a lot of these conferences and they get overwhelmed because they get bombarded by all these different piece part vendors. Our goal is to bring you guys the easy button, which is really bring it to you the same way that you buy telephony services today. You pick up the phone and you get dial tone, right? And so a lot of the capabilities that we're looking at is trying to bring you the same type of experience, through some of these other city infrastructure elements. Before we kind of get into it, kind of one of the other big themes that we have is we're vendor agnostic. And so, just like our telecom network, we don't manufacture anything that goes into our own telecom network. We basically act as a master integrator, right? We come out, we understand what the capabilities are that are needed. We design out the infrastructure. We acquire all the different pieces. We install and maintain all of those independent pieces and build the applications that are needed in order to operate and to manage all of those assets, and then bring it to you as a managed service. And so really we look at all these different partnerships that we have, be able to bring all this together. The good news too is that we are a tier 1 partner with most of the people that you're going to be buying equipment from in order to do a lot of these solutions. And so we get the best discounts, we get the best access to their top talent, from a design, engineering, implementation standpoint. And so, we've got direct lines in, at the leadership levels in all these different organizations. All right. So, business drivers for smart cities, and kind of what are really driving a lot of these technology decisions. So the first is efficiencies via kind of converged platform. So if you think about a lot of city services today, they are very siloed in how they are organized and delivered and managed, etc. But there's actually a lot of capabilities and opportunities for synergies through these different technologies that are out there in order to better integrate and bring all of this together under a single pane of glass. And so if you think of, you've got different utilities that operate independently. You've got your lighting infrastructure. You've got your public safety infrastructure. You've got your fire infrastructure. All these different things really end up operating kind of today as independent silos, and there's really a lot of opportunities to by leveraging technology and integration of those technologies to bring those together and identify synergies across them. The other big thing, and something I know that's near and dear to your guys' heart, is generating new revenue streams. And so, a lot of opportunities through technologies to generate revenue, whether it's through advertising, through increased collection of fees or increased fees, or revenue protection. So, an easy example here, a port example you guys would understand is. Project that we didn't do, but the one that I'm pretty familiar with is there's a port up in New England, and basically the business model was they had multiple different places where you could dock and different vendors that would offload the ships, etc., and process the product coming off of the ships, and all of those docking fees were self-reported by each of those independent docks, right? So the port went and installed a video camera with some analytics on it, and literally all they had to do was tell the businesses that they had installed these cameras, and miraculously the next month their revenues doubled.
Wow.
They didn't even look at the actual video, but because everything was self-reported, they were able to, the threat of being busted, increased the revenue pretty substantially now. An extreme example, but one that I thought was pretty interesting because it was a single deployment of a couple cameras and a little bit of video analytics, a relatively low cost solution which generated a significant upside in terms of revenue. So these are the types of opportunities that we look at. Another one that I think is interesting is that maybe something that we think about here is DC parking meters. You guys know what DC does in terms of parking meters? So they do real-time pricing on all of their parking meters.
Wow.
And so based on, so they were able to collect data off of all the different kiosks and know at any given time, both citywide as well as in different zones within the city, the level of utilization of the meters at any given time. And so they can go and affect the actual rates on those meters on an hourly basis. So
You mean the rates on the meters change depending upon
how much is
How
being
much
used,
demand?
how much demand there is.
the, interesting.
Wow. The
That
peach
would
party.
really piss me off.
It also knows when the meter expired without the meter maid, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
That would piss me off too.
Exactly.
Well, but that's the other thing about, but they also, a lot of these cities now have, the ability to renew your parking space, remotely. An app will send you
Sure.
a text message that, hey, you're getting ready to expire. Do you want to re-up, et cetera.
San Francisco only lets you go 2 hours though. It's really challenging.
San Francisco, where it costs $80 to park your car overnight.
Yeah.
So
That's true. We could try that in this city, but it might not work too well.
it might not work too well. I think some of the merchants would have, and the residents would have an issue with
Well,
the parking in
there's
their
beach-
spots.
Well, the beach parking
Yeah,
is Yeah. a pretty perfect example of that.
yeah.
Where
Well, that's
you
an
could
example,
utilize
right, where
this.
you could do real-time pricing, on 4th of July or whatever. You
Right.
could, and it would, you wouldn't even have to pre-program it, right? It would just detect, the volume of
If
parking.
somebody pays for an hour and leaves in 30 minutes, does it reset the parking?
I don't know.
Darn. I hope not.
Oh,
I mean,
trust me,
So
it
you get the
does.
free parking rate.
So it's not, it's, in a lot of cases, they're not actually metered, right? They're zoned.
Zone, yeah.
And so instead of having individual meters at every spot, you just basically are signing up for a zone.
Mhm.
And so you can
Punch
detect
your-
based on,
Drive your plate.
Space.
yeah, you
Yeah.
can play in your
That's true.
zone. Yep. And so, other big, important elements is improved engagement, whether it be residents, the government and the staff within the city. And basically creating, different opportunities to create platforms where you can actually, get information out about what's going on within the city, special events, basically, key elements, right? Inform, protect, and revitalize. So being able to, provide information on real time on what's going on and to link everyone in. And so also being able to go from a protect standpoint. When we talk about this, kind of on the next slide, is driving people to where you want them to go or driving them where you don't want them to go. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. We talk about some of the applications elements, and then general economic growth through innovation, and so leveraging the technology innovation as an actual selling point for the community. I think. Terry and Frank have heard the story, but we're working with a community in Florida, and for those who know their geography, this community is on the east side of 75, and so pretty much swampland. For those, it's outside of outside of the Naples area there, east of 75, and they originally designed the community thinking that their target market was the 55 and older crowd. And so they're going to get retirees and things like that. So they built out all these different amenities. Well, as part of that designing out, they worked with Florida Power and Light to develop a 70 megawatt solar power generation facility, because it was going to be cheaper to build out that than to go and get the level of power from other locations out to that space. And it also now made them the first all-solar community in the United States. And so on top of that, they said, all right, well, we're going to put in autonomous vehicles in this community that can take the people from point A to point B within the area, and so they don't have to have cars if they don't want to actually have to drive around and have cars. And so, and a number of other kind of, so gigabit connectivity to every home, and community-wide Wi-Fi ubiquitously throughout the entire community. So wherever you go within the community, you have Wi-Fi access. So they had a not a groundbreaking, but their first open house, where they kind of their kickoff for their sales and marketing campaign a couple months ago. They had an 8-mile backup.
Wow.
People parking up to 8 miles away. They had to get shuttle buses to shuttle people into the community because they hadn't built parking yet, and so they had such demand for this community, and significantly larger than what they expected. And the other interesting part about it was the demographics, completely opposite of what they thought they were going to attract. So it was all late 20s and early 30s young families that wanted to be part of this community.
Wow.
So, and it was all because of, again, not the location. It was all about, it's a high-tech, community with, all of these different high-tech amenities.
Here are the two different ways you can find me.
Community of the future.
One way to talk.
And she's here.
Yeah.
Okay.
My apologies.
So, so in terms of kind of some of our, from a CenturyLink standpoint, what are some of the technologies that we're heavily...
Here are the two different.
Can shut it off.
There's a toilet tank in there. You can just
Yeah.
drop it right in there.
He has
It's
a
amazing,
brand,
isn't it?
in all honesty, he has a brand new phone, okay?
Then I have great sympathy for him.
Yeah, and it's a Samsung, so we're waiting for the fire to start any second now.
Well, hence the toilet tank.
That's right. So I'm glad you said that.
I'd like to throw all of them in the toilet tank and go back to playing a good round of golf again.
You got to get a GPS for the golf GPS app for it.
That's what you need, yeah.
We'll talk about that one day.
Yeah.
So what are some of the areas that we see and we spend a lot of time focusing on? So the first one is probably not the sexiest one out there, but it's street lighting. And why do we spend a lot of time on that? We'll talk a little bit more about it on the next slide, but actually really good business models and ROI around street lighting. And so right now it is probably the largest element of government waste out there, and the biggest opportunity for cost savings and synergies. The next is, again, street and garage parking. So creating intelligence around the parking and different elements around that. Traffic monitoring, and so being able to actually put out sensors out on the roads, be able to detect traffic and occupancy of vehicles and things like that. We'll talk a little bit more about each of these in subsequent slides. Safety and security, and so whether it be deploying video cameras or being able to actually leverage those video feeds and doing data analytics off of those video feeds. And so, being able to better optimize your police force and what you focus on and improved threat detection utilizing some of these technologies. And then location-aware mobile applications, and so a whole kind of myriad of different use cases that come in with that. So the location-aware element can allow you to detect people and where they're going and what they're doing, and collect information about that and push the information to them as well, based on where they are, what they're doing, what they're interested in, etc. And so that could be in the form of advertising, it could be in the form of security alerts and different things that actually create opportunities for you to directly reach out and interact with the folks that are out in the community. So, and all this kind of connects in again using wireless connectivity and then utilizing an IoT platform, which is kind of the common data layer where all of your information comes together and gets brought out. We'll talk a little more about that. All right, so smart street lighting. Affectionately, we call it the data center in the sky. So, so who owns your streetlights? Do you guys own your streetlights, or does the power company own your streetlights?
In Port Hueneme, it's heavily Southern California Edison, probably
Okay.
90% or more. City does own, I think, 100 lights
Okay.
in different areas, but it's
So
The
you
vast
have
majority are Edison owned.
Okay, do you have access to them in terms of right-of-way access and things like that on those poles?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
we met with someone from Edison recently too, to
Okay.
kind of gauge what their willingness was to work with us on if we were to do something like this
Yep.
citywide.
They didn't try to sell you the lights?
No, and I was involved, the previous city I worked for was when they were really pushing the, buying the streetlights
Mhm.
concept, but they seem to, I think we missed, even if they're still doing that, we missed the window for it here, so.
Oh, so the power company was actually pushing it?
Yeah, Edison.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Edison and
Interesting.
PG&E.
They've been pushing that quite a bit
Yeah.
lately.
yeah.
They had very few takers,
Hmm,
as it worked out, and so they have a Plan B now.
okay,
And the Plan B is they actually will tell you that Plan A really wasn't any good, so here's Plan B.
okay,
And that's what they talked to us about. And in effect, what that is that, it's open season. In other words, they're willing to entertain anything that we want to attach to their property.
okay.
All right. And on top of that, the state of California passed a resolution 2 weeks ago where the state now controls the, how shall I say, the specifications and the approval. It's subject to intervention by the cities,
Sure.
but they wanted to standardize something because there are a lot of cities, and this isn't one of them, that unfairly withheld the carriers being able to have access to these poles.
Mhm.
And so the carriers, do what they do, hired a lobby and went in and, made something happen. So that passed. The governor signed it last week. So that actually helps what they're trying to achieve here.
So
It's a
you-
good thing.
So do you guys, did they talk about kind of the economics of LED versus high-pressure sodium fixtures and all that stuff?
Yeah.
You guys are familiar with all that? So I don't need to go through all that? So
No, I think
50%
we're-
cost savings on doing the LED swap outs. If you add in intelligence into them, you can get 70+% savings off of that. Now the good news here is, as I was driving around before the meeting, most of your fixtures look like they were Cobra heads, and which are actually the best in terms of return on investment, in terms of time frame for payback of any other fixture. So the more ornamental, your acorns or your teardrop type fixtures,
Right.
they're significantly more expensive, and so your payback time frame is significantly longer. But the Cobra heads by far are the ones with the best payback time frame. And so again, the real estate of the poles is extremely valuable. And so when we do the LED swap outs, we put in smart nodes. And so within the smart nodes, two main types. So one is what you already have in a lot of yours here, the photocell. So it'll do ambient light detection, turn on and turn off the lights based on the amount of ambient light that's out. The other thing that we recommend, especially in side streets, is motion detection. And so what motion detection allows you to do is a couple different cases. The most prevalent one is to be able to actually dim the lights at different times of the day. And so if you've got a residential street that's got street lights on it, at 2 o'clock in the morning, you don't necessarily need to have them always at 100% illumination. So if somebody walks by and they can go to 80% or 100% illumination at that point. So the motion sensor is basically there to detect that type of traffic and to be able to affect the level of light that are coming off. So two big things with that. Obviously there's electrical savings by having them dimmed. There are, it also, on the positive side to the citizens, other than the financials, actually reduces light pollution.
Yeah,
And
that's
so,
what I was thinking when you were saying that. I'm thinking, well, that cuts down on complaints.
Yep. And so if you got the person who right now has got a light right outside of their bedroom window that's on at 2 o'clock in the morning, and they always have to have their shades down because it generates so much light into their house. Well, if it's at 30% illumination, then then it really cuts down.
And it also attracts attention into commercial lots.
Well, and so the value with that, right, is when somebody starts walking down the street, from a crime prevention standpoint, yeah, the light goes on,
Right.
someone's aware that, somebody might be watching you, right?
Precisely.
So we designed out a solution for community in Florida, private community. Those of you that follow golf probably know this community from a certain Thanksgiving incident a couple years ago where
Oh,
someone
yeah.
got chased around
Yeah.
with a golf club in
Flying
this community.
999.
But they actually had actually a big problem with people hopping over the fence. And even though it's a 12-foot high stone fence and that goes around the entire community, people drive trucks up to, park next to it, use that to jump over the fence, or put ladders up against it and hop over, et cetera, and get into the community. So what we designed out for them was a combination of, we call it the kind of the trifecta, where we designed out a street light replacement, put in the motion sensors within the street lights, and then backhauled that data with Wi-Fi access points. So dual benefit of being able to have a method to backhaul the data, but also the ability to provide community Wi-Fi now. And then we also use some of that Wi-Fi and that fiber connectivity to deploy security cameras around the community. And then backhaul all that data into a central platform. So within the guard shack, if they got a light that came on in the back of the community at 2 o'clock in the morning, they could then generate an alert on the dashboard and then go and activate security cameras that are deployed in that general area and be able to see what's going on. Instead of having to deploy a guard all the way out there, before they had no idea, right? The guard would have to be sitting there driving around looking for that stuff. Well, now they've got situational awareness of everything that's going on, and based on these sensors and video cameras that are deployed around the community. And so they generate cost savings off of the LED swap out that helps to pay for the Wi-Fi and the video cameras. So again, connected light controllers, public Wi-Fi. You can deploy environmental sensors, security cameras. You can do traffic sensors off of those poles, parking sensors, etc. All capabilities off of those assets. So something, very much so. When we talk about kind of the business model with the power companies, one is you can actually take over the asset, or we could take over the asset and maintain it, or we've also been working with a couple other power companies where the power company still owns the asset and still maintains the asset, and we actually design, develop all of the technology, and then actually have it pre-configured and then let the power company actually do the deployment. Because part of the biggest expense with a lot of these projects is actually not the technology, it's the deployment and the maintenance cost.
Right.
And what you don't want to have is two different companies either deploying or maintaining those assets, right?
That's really good to hear, because when we had Edison here, and I've sat through a lot of their meetings, they basically say we've got people we work with, but they don't get specific. So I think what we should do is get you with Edison.
Yeah.
All right, and
Yeah.
make it clear that you're interested in that kind of business, because
Yeah.
it sounds like you have a big value add to it that they're not thinking about.
Well, like I say, there's a number of different models that we can employ,
Sure.
right? But
Okay.
the biggest thing is you don't want to have two different truck rolls, two different lifts, right? So what you don't want to do is, if you're going to do an LED lighting replacement project, you don't want the power company going out and deploying the fixtures and then having CenturyLink come behind and deploy the technology on the poles, because now you're paid, and probably in the state of California, probably $250 to $300 per truck lift, right? And so
500. And
Yeah.
what's really interesting, and because all the cities share information with each other.
Yes.
So tomorrow we're going to make this pitch to Moore Park.
Oh, okay.
Now Moore Park bought their poles.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they
What
bought their
cities they
poles.
did?
3.7 million. So what I'm saying is we can gather a lot of information to share with you on the, if you had done it, what the advantage might have been,
Yeah.
or still could be, sort of thing. So,
I got a feeling if they offered that before and you came back to them now, they would probably still.
well, they're trying to get out of it.
They're trying to
Based
get out.
on our meeting that we had at the hotel,
Yeah.
I got back to the mayor and I said, you guys really need to relook at this.
Oh, there's more
Well,
parking.
Mark
Right,
wants
more
to
part,
get out
yeah.
of the ownership.
Right,
Oh,
right.
yeah.
I said, so they put the brakes on it, because it's interesting,
Yeah.
you know, so,
Well, like I say, I mean, so again, you don't want to have multiple groups maintaining different pieces of those poles, because, and when I say 250 to 300, that's because I'm going down the street
yeah.
and doing all of them, right?
Well, they,
But yeah, what you don't want to have happen, so the other thing to remember with all of these connected lights, and so I'll give you City of LA, the numbers that they published, $200 per light pole per year was their maintenance cost.
wow. You have a lot of light
Because,
poles.
because what would happen is they would have crews just driving around looking for lights that are out or responding to citizen complaints of one or two light poles that were out, right? Which is the absolutely the least economically efficient way to go and maintain those, right? Because now you're driving from a central location to a point, stopping, doing the truck, doing the whole, because there's a whole process that you have to go through before you can lift the
Right.
bucket and then do that.
Control. Just getting
Well,
the
yeah.
pylons up.
I mean, they're doing it at night because but so the traffic control's a little bit less, but again, they're going and driving and parking and going through this whole thing to do one light,
Right.
right? And they were doing each one of these lights every 3 years because the high pressure sodium fixtures burn out, every 2 to 3 years versus your LEDs, which are 10, 12, 15 year type fixtures, right? So your maintenance goes down dramatically as well.
And the
That's what you're
utilization
talking
goes down.
Huh?
The power utilization
And power
goes down.
utilization. I can make the business case, most cases, just based on the power utilization. The lower maintenance is gravy, and especially in the state of California with the, with the labor costs and things like that associated to maintaining the instrument. So what happens now is, you can schedule that crew once a month. So instead of having them going and doing different things every night, if you have them go and just go out, every single light in the entire community that's burned out because you've got immediate situational awareness based on the smart nodes that you deployed in there, you know exactly which lights are out in every single area. So A, you're providing better SLAs because you're not waiting for someone to call in or someone to drive by and see that it's burned out. And B, you're able to effectively route those trucks in a single night or in a single period to go and do all of the replacement on a regular interval. Added in, you can now do predictive analytics to know, all right, well, I've got, over the last 6 months, I've got half a dozen lights within a given street that have all burnt out. Odds are there's something, A, wrong with the power in that area because it's either too high or too low, causing excess fatigue on those fixtures, so you gotta go and remediate that with the power company. And B, you got a pretty good likelihood that all the rest of those fixtures that are on that same circuit are probably gonna burn out within a given period of time. So therefore, you should go ahead and plan and schedule that you're gonna have to replace all of those in that given period of time as well. And so it's all about, getting information and being able to do actions based on the situational awareness of what's going on in the community. Another option that we do have as well, given the wind that's out there today, it probably would have been a good option for today, but it's a fully sustainable autonomous light pole solution. So they can either get deployed on grid or off grid. And so off grid, they can get deployed someplace where there's no otherwise access to public power. And so they're controlled with a battery backup that's deployed with the solution. And so the wind and the solar generate typically 2 to 3 times the amount of power that you need to actually run the light. So you can actually deploy other technology on there as well, all leveraging the battery backup. If it's an on-grid solution, what is probably your largest consumer of power today becomes your largest generator of power in the future. So you can actually take all those assets that are now consuming electricity and actually generate electricity and feed that back to the grid. The other nice thing too is that they're generating power during the day when your power utilization is typically the highest, and if you have rates that vary depending upon the time of the day, you're actually generating power at the highest rate time and then pulling it off at night at the lowest rate time. Slid in a couple slides here on indoor stuff, smart building stuff. Again, biggest thing within our smart building practice, again, is internal LED lighting. And so that can either be Ethernet based or traditional copper based. But all of the same ROI benefits that you have with external, you have with internal as well. And it's actually a better light than fluorescent. The other thing that allows you to do, again, is by having them, especially if you do the power over the Ethernet based, you've got complete situational awareness of every light fixture in every building and exactly what its effectiveness on, the amount of hours that it's burning per week, per month, per year, and do different things to affect that as well. Some ergonomic studies too around being able to vary the intensity of the light at different times of the day and actually improving employee performance based on aligning with different circadian rhythms. Again, I don't profess to be an expert in that space, just relaying the information that I've heard. All right, so SparkBarking, 2 or 3 major things that they, different ways that they're implemented. So some of the more common ones that I see, especially in an urban area like this, is actually pavement deployed options. You can deploy a small little disc that's battery power. It can last anywhere from 5 to 10 years. And then you use a low bandwidth connection to be able to backhaul the data off of that. And so basically, car pulls into the spot, it's magnetic, detects that a car is there, sends a little signal that we pick up off of the low bandwidth connection that the status has changed, so now it's occupied versus not occupied, and then you can do real-time availability based on that information. You can tie that again to different metered solutions. You can also, using the light poles, you can do sensor-based or camera-based options as well. And so those can hook into the municipal power that's on those poles as well and power those cameras or the sensors. If you do camera-based, you get the added benefit of the video feeds. And so you can utilize the video feeds for not only for the parking element, but for also for security and command and control type capabilities as well. And so basically you just end up doing video analytics off of those video feeds instead of just parking. But we'll talk about some other video analytics that we can do as well.
All those parking lots around 3rd Street and Santa Monica have that if you guys ever go over there. It's, you pull up and it tells you how many on each floor, and
Yep.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
it is convenient.
Smart parking.
So, and you could also, build it into a mobile app like you see on the right there, where you can show all the individual spots or, whatever in terms of that. You can also deploy that to your meter mates. They go around and know every single spot that's, where the meter's expired, and then go and do
Being a
that.
beach town, that could be very handy for this
Absolutely.
town, especially when.
Again, revenue improvement.
Right.
So, and then I throw up the real-time pricing. I don't know how much traffic congestion you have on weekends and holidays related to looking for parking, but in theory, that's another added benefit where you can route people away from different areas, so that you can route them to where there's actually available parking. And in theory, be able to, I don't know, do you have metered parking off of kind of the main strip here? And so in theory, you could identify your utilization on those meters, in those areas, and then identify, well, maybe we want to expand, the areas of metering and expand that out. It gives you, a cost-effective and easy business justification on that. I won't spend a ton of time on this because I don't think you guys have as big of an issue around this, other than potentially around special events and holidays. But opportunities. The sensor that I have up there on the left can, with that one sensor, literally do all the things that are there on the left, so it can identify the number of vehicles that went by, how fast they were going, how big they were, was it a motorcycle, a truck, a car, a van, and it can actually detect based on infrared how many people are in the car as well. So it can not only detect traffic, but what's the utilization and things like that. So, I haven't seen a case yet where they've integrated that together with a video camera solution, but in theory it's possible. So you could, do automatic HOV, violation detection utilizing those types of sensors as well.
In Colorado, or at least Denver area, we've got like 3 occupancy is free, basically. For
Right.
3 people.
Yeah.
Senses and.
So does it automatically detect the occupancy?
I don't receive a toll for it in the mail, so I assume it does.
Okay. Yeah, because some of them have different, like in DC we have it, but you have a different switch that you switch your speed pass.
Oh, no, it just automatically.
It automatically detects it, yeah. So then there's.
It's gotta be video or something.
It's probably based on this type of tech. So this is Wavetronics is this provider and can detect the
I
actual.
tell my son in the back, he sometimes lays down.
Sit up. We not detect you.
Like my folks used to do to the drive-in, would go in the trunk, Sort of a higher tech solution to cost savings.
Now they catch you.
How do we make your police force more effective? Video surveillance opportunities here, and so we can leverage either existing cameras or new cameras. The good thing is that we can do a lot of this stuff off of existing feeds. So if you have existing cameras that you're feeding in, we can actually pull data off of that. But we can do a number of different analytical things, anywhere from the facial recognition and other types of people identification. But we can do some of the more common ones is objects left behind, objects removed that shouldn't be removed, fast moving objects going through the picture. So somebody running in an area you wouldn't expect them to be running, or at a time you wouldn't be expecting them to be running. Dwell time, things like that. So somebody sitting in and standing in an area for an extended period of time, and you wouldn't expect them to be standing in that area. A number of different analytical scenarios that you can run off of those video feeds. So again, it's all about being able to generate alerts of situational awareness around the community and routing your police force most effectively to those areas where there's areas of concern.
This town is unique because it's right next to a port.
Yeah.
And a port being next to a Navy base.
Yes.
And there's a lot of opportunities for the city to take advantage of the funding that Homeland Defense is making.
Sure.
Up and down the coast to solidify the security. And what Bob and I are hoping to do for them is to, through our political friends, lead them into the sources of this funding. And hopefully it can pay for a lot of the other advantages of doing an upgrade.
Right.
But there's a lot of emphasis right now in tightening down these ports in anticipation of nothing at this point, but it could be
Right.
something tomorrow.
Right. Well, like I say, the reason why the stuff that I present, one of the big things that I use in my speeches a lot is, in the IoT world, there are, thousands of different use cases, but only probably about 50 that really actually make sense.
Right.
And so, I've whittled down the use, we focus on the areas where there's ROI and business value, right? And so, one of the ones that I don't talk about, which might work for you guys now with their new business model, is the Big Belly trash cans. You guys know about Big Belly?
No.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
about
I've
Big
heard
Belly.
of it.
Yeah. So Big Belly are solar-powered, self-compacting, self-regulating trash cans.
Wow.
Self-compacting.
Self-compacting.
That's scary.
So there's a solar.
Don't fall in.
Yeah, right.
Well,
Don't forget your dogs in there, right?
So there's a solar array on the top, generates power. It does compacting and then it's internet connected, and so it can actually inform you when it's full.
Smart trash, we call it.
It's probably ready to show bones went off.
Yeah.
So the general business case behind that is, reduced, cycles of people having to go around and do collections, right? As well as, real, again, situational awareness of what's going on, and if you've got, some, trash can that, filled up, irregularly that you need to go and empty, you can get somebody out there to do it, so.
Public trash compactor, that's pretty cool.
Yep. I wasn't real big on them for a long time, but they recently changed their business model. The big problem that I had with them before, and one of the other things that I'm also big on in the IoT space is aligning the payment of something and the costing of something relative to the problem that it's trying to solve. So my big issue with Big Belly all along is it was a CapEx solution to an OpEx problem. And so now they've gone and actually created it where they do leasing of the trash cans, making an OpEx solution, right? Because the big problem that they had was they would go to cities and they convince them to do a pilot of half a dozen of these trash cans, and the pilot would go well. They would be happy with it, in a microcosm. Again, the city proved out that they actually had to collect the trash less on those cans. The problem is that there wasn't enough cans for them actually to save any money. So the pilot was a net increase in cost. Well, the other problem then is now you got the 2-year cycle of having to go through, business case, bond issuances, funding, whatever processes that you have to go through. It was 2 years later now after the pilot where they actually went to go and do a CapEx purchase for the next round of trash cans. And so, so again, it was a CapEx solution to an OpEx problem. By now implementing the leasing model, now you've got an OpEx solution to an OpEx
So
problem.
it's now trash compacting as a service, right?
Trash it is. It's trash as a service.
Trash as a service. That's kind of like porno channels, isn't it? Not that I have any familiarity with them.
So,
Explain that, 'cause I don't.
I'll send you a link.
so the
Oh, you just texted me.
so you'll see a lot of the when we talk about kind of how we approach the market, and it's a lot of the same type of things, right? So when we talk about lighting, we go and we're looking at how do we go and provide that as an operational expense instead of having to spend $3.7 million to buy your lights and do all this stuff, right?
Right.
We look at it as, how do we take this, do it over a 10-year period, and doing, rolling in the financing as part of the overall solution, and then build a business case with you guys in terms of what's the OpEx offset that we're expecting to have, what's the relative cost of the asset purchase and the financing for that period, what's the net savings over that period, and then what's the savings after that operational or that capital expense is fully amortized out, and now you're down to what your operational expenses are, right? So we can work with you guys to help build out those different business models and understand all of those different financial elements. So won't spend a ton of time in this one. So ContextAware mobile solutions. So smart city applications, again, integrating in a lot of the different things that we talked about. So you can have event schedules. You could have your smart parking integrated into your mobile app. You could sell advertising through that for local businesses or national businesses. Could sell advertising through your mobile platform, and all of that generates revenue, which offsets some of the expenditures, and actually the goal is to have a net positive cash flow out of all these different investments that are actually helping offset some of the other financial challenges. So a little bit about our IoT platform. So key elements to this is, again, pulling all the data off of all these different devices that are deployed out to the community, having different capabilities of ingesting the data. I can do 3 different types of data processing. So I can do kind of real-time transactional processing. So the stuff that we talked about, the IR sensor on your light detects that there's foot traffic underneath it and turns it on. So that's a transactional. Going out and doing reporting on all the lights throughout the community and the amount of power utilization, and doing real-time analysis on cost savings, etc. Off of that, that'd be a reporting function. And then predictive would be what I talked about before about being able to go out and detect, oh, well, we've had X amount of failures of X, Y, and Z, and therefore I can future predict that, I'm likely to have failures of X, Y, and Z, or I see different trends of information on my parking, and I can better detect, oh, well, I should, proactively go and increase the rates on certain days or holiday periods to be able to generate more revenue, etc. And then all of that information is made available again via applications, whether it be a user interface off of that IoT platform or via mobile or other web applications that may be citizen facing. Data capture, kind of wide variety of different data capture elements. So again, we talked about Wi-Fi, being able to utilize that as a data capture element. Number of different low bandwidth solutions. So when you look at, we design out and kind of look at all the different use cases collectively to kind of identify what the wireless capability is going to be. So Wi-Fi, really good for high density, high bandwidth, low range. Whereas the complete opposite with some of these other solutions. When you look at Allure or other low bandwidth, wide area network solutions. So low bandwidth, high range. And so you can have, like a low band, 6 low band solution, 5 to 8 kilometers, some LoRa or some of these other things can have up to 8 to 15 kilometer ranges. So I could deploy a single station, right here, off of backhaul that you had, and get connectivity probably for the entire city off of one location, and that would be able to capture all the data for every light, for instance, across all itself. Now, when you talk about video is a high bandwidth solution versus a low bandwidth solution, so we'd have to use either a Wi-Fi or a direct fiber or other higher bandwidth connectivity at each of those locations. Cyclu connection. So
do video very well.
Yep. And so, and then also providing community Wi-Fi as well. So we're working right now. One of the big business models that we're working on, and we're piloting it at working with another beach community in southern Florida, where we're having advertising subsidized Wi-Fi connectivity in the beach area, Fort Lauderdale. And so there's an RFP out there right now, and it's a reverse auction. And it's basically how much revenue, what the highest amount of revenue share is going to win the RFP. So the model is you're coming in, you're paying, the provider's paying for all of the wireless connectivity, and then selling advertising through that and through other advertising mechanisms in and around the community to be able to offset the cost of that. So, not saying that we can definitely offset all of it here.
Right.
We got a little bit different, traffic flow model and advertising model than Fort Lauderdale does.
Yeah.
But, it's another opportunity that's out there to be able to monetize that, and a number of national brands and things like that would pay to have additional advertising in different locations to help offset some of the costs of some of the different solutions. Another view of this, I'm not going to spend a ton of time in this one, but again, sensors communicating up through the wireless connectivity out to the overall wide area network, ingesting into the IoT platform, doing visualization, alerting and alarming, reporting, analytics, and API integration out to other applications. So what is it? What is it, and how we're offering these things? So really, as we kind of talked about it, we're here to partner with you guys to help make this work for you. It doesn't it doesn't do me a lot of good to talk about a lot of solutions that don't make business value for you. And so, to maximize my time, your time, and not to waste either one of our time, was to come in very quickly and help identify what makes sense from a business case standpoint for the community. If there's, if it makes sense, we'll continue to spend time with you guys and help you figure out and making it work, developing a business plan around it. If we can't make it work, we'll tell you, and we'll find something else. So, but the goal is to, come in, provide you, those solutions, provide you the architecture and the design. Everyone agree that it's a good business model, and we kind of move forward. So, and making it as easy as we can on both sides. So again, we talked a little bit about this before. Delivering OpEx solutions for OpEx problems, right? And so how can we pull together different financial models and make it all make sense within your operational budgets that you already have? It's going out and getting capital dollars is not always the easiest, and it's also time consuming. So on both sides, right? So by providing things as as an operational solution and aligning it with your existing budgets, it helps accelerate the delivery of these capabilities and getting them out there much faster for both sides. Different sample business models and use cases. So the lower right is an example of comparing traditional fixtures versus LED fixtures over time. So that's a new deployment, and then the one on the left is a brownfield. So the one on the right is a greenfield, and the one on the left is a brownfield. So if you look at a LED replacement chart, the cost of the LED fixtures and the maintenance of LED fixtures is in orange. In the blue, you're seeing a continual uptick over time. Typical 2 to 3% increase in the cost of electricity, et cetera, over time. This one had a 10-year cycle for the payment, and then once that payback was done, you'd see a dramatic drop off in the cost. So the reason why it's not all the way down to 50% is there's still some amount of replacement assumed in that model as well. But as you can see, there's different business models that will run to align everything out. Some of the different smart solutions projects we have going on. So District Detroit, this one's a 50 block area. You guys familiar with this project at all? No hockey fans in the crowd? All right.
Boo, Red
So-
Wings. Sorry.
I'm a Capitals fan, so ironically, one of my largest customers is the Red Wings.
Avalanche
So-
fans, so we're
Yeah.
fierce
Yep.
enemies.
So, but it's as you know, just Detroit's had a lot of challenges over the last decade, so District Detroit is a 50-block revitalization project undertaken by the Elitch family in conjunction with the city of Detroit to revitalize those areas. So it's a little over a decade-long project. Phase one was the deployment or build out of the new Little Caesars Arena. Within that, we did all the network infrastructure, the voice infrastructure, and all of the IPTV capabilities within the arena. So actually, these numbers are out of date. So the IPTV solution, they did another 500 displays. So it actually was just over 1,700 displays, 45. And I think they're up over 12,000 ports on that solution. And so all of that included the parking garages. So we're working with them on doing round 2 of the smart parking solutions in there, doing real-time availability and communication out through mobile apps and video screens throughout the property, as well as doing both internal and external smart lighting. Pilot that we're doing out using the trifecta at Arizona State University. So it's a student block, the student housing on the right side, a couple buildings So 20 light fixtures that we're doing, relatively small, but within that we're deploying Wi-Fi and video cameras within that, and doing some advanced analytical capabilities and proving out some different use cases for them in relation to advanced video analytics across that pretty prevalent, well-traveled pathway. And so we're doing some both facial recognition and other video analytics off of that. So the initial use cases using facial rec is actually using an empty database, because they didn't want to release all the PII information to us yet, but basically doing unique visitor counts and things like that, so being able to recognize that people haven't come and gone. But obviously it's going to prove out the capability to do it with a full database, so we could load it in with student and faculty images and actually detect when there's non-student faculty people going out through the community. Another stadium that we just finished up end of last year, US Bank Stadium, and new Minnesota Vikings
Now you give
stadium.
somebody a word.
And actually, we just kicked off a couple weeks ago. They've got a new practice facility that they're building out, which is their new corporate offices in Eagan, Minnesota. And so we're doing and it's got about a 5,000 person venue in there that we're doing as well. So we're doing all the office buildings within that space. So again, video cameras, network, IPTV, smart lighting, etc., throughout both complexes. Some different cities that we're working with. So Babcock Ranch is the city that I talked about before, the first all solar power community in the U.S. Again, gigabit to connectivity to every home, and integrating in our television service, smart home service, mobile applications, parking, security. Sterling Ranch, again, a community in Colorado that we're working with, again, gigabit connectivity, community-wide wireless connectivity, etc. This one is a theme park in Orlando. Does not have ears, but it has small little pieces that tend to get stuck on couches and things like that. So I can't go any more into that, but we basically did park-wide Wi-Fi connectivity throughout, mobile application on top of that, so did real-time ride wait times, etc. On all of that, and then also being able to do pushes out to anyone who had the mobile app or was connected to the Wi-Fi to be able to notify them of events and things like that that are going on. So being able to, again, direct people to where you want them to go or away from areas that you don't want them to be able to go. So a little bit about what we do.
A lot. I think that was great. Thank you. You think very good, huh?
Yeah.
Amazing what you're doing. And just like some of the conversations we had the other day, and you'll probably have with people in the future, projects you're working on. Situational awareness is become the acronym of our country, and we can't avoid it anymore. But to get to that point, you have to tie all these things in that are in front of us. Things that we never thought could be tied in now could be tied in, like the streetlights. In this community, like so many in Ventura County, we have what I call broadband feast or famine. Right. Either there's too much or there's not enough, right? And it affects a lot of business development that doesn't go on because when people evaluate if they're going to be here or there's not adequate broadband, they're not going to be here. It's just become like the new water. So, with the change of carriers, we were talking about that when the meeting first started, you and I. The new carrier, Frontier, doesn't seem to want to do anything about it, And based on their stock value,
they don't have any money.
Right, they don't have any money. All right, they're just kind
They're
of
just hoping to stay in business.
Precisely, and their stock is continuing to drop, and that's not a good sign. So CenturyLink has a big advantage. They're very profitable. That's good. And they're what's called a competitive local exchange carrier, which gives them a lot of power to come and do things and work with cities that the tariff carriers don't have. So that's some of the exploration that we want to do, you know, along the line. But with Bob's vision and, you know, my vision and shared by, you know, everyone, yourselves, is, you know, we want to do a facelift. We want to, you know, upgrade this place, and we want someone else to pay for it. So, but seriously,
Or use money you're already spending.
right?
Just using it.
Use money and there are grants. There's a plethora of federal grants that we could take advantage of, and state grants, and you know, there's a whole lot of things in the
Power
5G area.
grants.
You know, that's why we're looking, you know, working with CICLU. There's just a whole lot that can be done. It's just a matter of trying to organize an effort to see, and I'm hoping this is a step to start organizing an effort to see what we can do for the city and make it a model. Because, you know, right now, the other cities, honestly, in my opinion, and I work with most of them, they don't know what to do. They're wanderlust. They, you know, they're shift to the left, shift to the right, you know, and they you know, example, out of the clear blue sky, and I think I sent this to you, Oxnard puts an RFP on the street to upgrade their fiber plant. I sent it all to you too. And it's like, number one, they have no money, so I don't know how they're going to work this out. But the fact is that that's exactly what they shouldn't be doing at this point. They should, you know, be looking at what it is their needs analysis is, and you know what they want to grow into to serve their citizens over the next 20 years. And one of the key elements in there is we have to improve the broadband to the students. You know, California did a magnificent job of fibering up all the schools. You know, they spent $175 million, formed a nonprofit, fibered up all the schools. While you're in class, your stuff works great. You go home, that's the problem. Most of these parents who spend $200 a month for a cable package, that's 2 weeks' food for them. Right. You know, so what does that kid do? Well, it's reflective, I believe, in the lack of graduation rates in a lot of communities. And this problem can be solved. It can be solved at the same time as the lighting, the situational awareness. All this can be done at the same time, more bandwidth. You know, we just have to pay attention and you know, take steps, and that's kind of
what you gotta find the right combination.
Yeah, and the right
People
partner.
like, why do you guys spend so much time talking about lighting? Is it because it pays for everything else?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Because if I can save you money here and implement, you know, some Wi-Fi connectivity while we're doing it, and use that as the backhaul for those different lights, and now you've got areas within the community now that have fiber connectivity or other types of Wi-Fi connectivity that can permeate into some of those houses and provide them some of those services as well.
Yeah, there's such a need for this, what we're talking about here, through the school system.
Sure.
I think Terry, you know, started bringing that up. We're giving kids computers and laptops to take home, and they don't have
Connectivity.
The El Rio School District was talking about sending a truck out and putting it on a street corner to provide a hotspot.
Wow.
So, without going into too much detail, Ventura County, I know most of you don't live here, has been voted with the best weather county in the entire United States.
Wow.
That's why, you know, I remember...
No snow.
No snow. You got that one right.
And we're keeping it that way.
But I grew up in Brooklyn, New York as the immigrant, you know, second generation, you know. And I remember my parents, we got to move from here. The whole neighborhood is changing. It's changed. You know what the most popular place in New York City to live now? Is Brooklyn, New York.
Right.
Because basically they've done the things that have created high-speed internet, transportation, all the things that if we could do it here, I mean, the things you brought up with like just at the parking at the beach, that alone is a revenue generator as part of it.
And that's where we start, right? Is we start not necessarily always with what you maybe need immediately, but let's look at where can we do stuff that's going to either save money or generate money. And then we have it to pay for other stuff.
We have a community here in Port Hueneme, 773 homes, that the best internet up to 2 years ago that you could get was dial-up service.
Wow.
In today's generation.
And it's not
Had I
much
known what it was, I never would have moved there.
but you didn't tell them that it's still not much better.
Exactly right.
DSL, it's DSL at this stage.
For all intents and
Commercially
purposes.
distinct.
10.
But But the idea is, you know, we
12
want
and
to, we want to try to leverage,
12 and 6.
12 and 6, yeah.
want to try to leverage all the things that are going on. Again, close to, we have a great relationship here with the port with the base, you know, Homeland Defense, good time for, you know, facelifts. And even more than that, you know, the county, you know, they've got this broadband consortium, you know, we're sitting around trying to flap their wings, figuring out something to land on to make it their model. So what we're saying to them is, this is our model. You know, this is what's going to work. It's going to work here. You know, and the reason I know it's going to work here is because I had, you know, a large hand in the Santa Monica redevelopment. You know, their project 15 years ago, and we were sitting in a room just like this, in the city of Santa Monica in their old building. All right. And talking about what we could do for this area of Santa Monica. You might remember what it was like down there. It was terrible. It was Skid Row, all right? You know, how could they flip this and monetize it into this magnificent thing they've done now? And so when I was talking with Bob about this 2 years ago, he said, you know, we need that. We need that. You know, let's organize an effort here to try to do the same thing that would happen in Santa Monica. Now technology and carriers like yourself who were totally disinterested in the Santa Monica project 15 years ago, I know I approached them, are now very interested. And yours is the top of the list. You know, they're most aggressive in this giga city. You know, so when I saw his presentation in front of LA, you know, and incidentally, a lot of the leadership in LA wasn't there, but it wasn't unheard. Some interesting papers got written about what you said. The reason I know that is the guy who is in charge of public safety, Jeff Corral, who's a personal friend, called me and said, were you at this? And I said, yeah. He said, I need to talk to this guy. So that's come up now in the last couple of days. So it got to him. You know, when he had all his IT guys saying, Jeff, this is what we should look like in LA. You know, and Ciclu's already doing the port. All right, you already have a partnership with Ciclu. We have all this fiber here under the ground with Edison. They're already partnered. They already have contracts with Edison. So that's not a hard one. That's already done. You see what I'm saying? It's kind of like we're making a new dress here, and we just got to put all these pieces together and make the dress.
Well, then you bring Ciclu in, okay, with all the equipment that makes the thing. So it's really a total partnership that's been put together.
One of the use cases that I love that Ciclu provides is to low-income housing. A lot of our municipalities, our cities, our service providers out there, they're the small service providers, provide a very high speed to the low-income housing, which becomes quite a hot spot for the cities, if you will, or a hot topic, if you will, and that's an area that I think is, well, the FCC calls it the homework gap, if you're familiar with that. And they've actually, if you tie into the FCC, I think there's some funding available if you have, if you're going after low-income housing for the for the homework gap, right?
Yeah.
If you think of it, if your schools already have throughput, most low-income housing is either apartments, if you will. Primarily, it's not going to be single-family homes per se. So it's a lot easier to get from a schoolhouse, which is traditionally, you know, above the treetops, if you will, over to that low-income apartment complex, if you will. So we become a phenomenal vehicle for that. So sorry.
No, that's one of the reasons I asked you to come, Craig. Is, you know, and we had a little bit of a conversation at lunch. We had it in our meeting, where again, Bob and our object here is to try to lift this thing, and we've identified with California Housing, you know, affordable housing. You know, it's got contacts right to the directors there. Got contacts right to HUD. Helped HUD rewrite the spec for all of their houses. That's done now. That's completed. That's law. Okay. So all of the housing that you may have in your community that are these eligible buildings, they're all privately owned, and the real estate company that has prided itself on reselling those types of properties, NIA Realty. You're going to meet with them tomorrow. Who manages 28,000 buildings in California that are these affordable income, is standing ready to work with us to, let's do it, guys. The laws have changed. We can do wireless, we can do Wi-Fi, we can do all the things you do well, and let's get it going.
Well, the real big thing is you don't have to dig up the streets anymore.
Probably not.
That's the key.
We prefer not to.
No one likes doing that.
Well, some
Well, it's
people do like
expensive.
doing that,
Yeah, well,
actually.
It's
you know, but,
expensive, though.
and the other,
Paving contractors
the
love
other
it.
problem is, look, government is supposed to protect its citizens, all right? So we do a good job of protecting them from most things, but one of the things that we've done a very poor job, and I say we, because, you know, it's just one of those things that's happenstances happen, is there's all these changes going on in all of these staple situations that, how should I say, create problems for people, like this Frontier situation that we have here, okay? During the time of Verizon, you know, great customer, you could probably attest to this in the IT department, you know, fairly great situation going on, maybe not so great back in the GTE days, huh? Not now, no, right?
No, not previously. It's gotten better for us with Frontier taking over, honestly.
Well, I'll tell you, we gotta put you on TV, man, because you're the only person I said. In my community in Thousand Oaks, don't mention the word that because they'll steal your car, you know?
It has been really a case-by-case basis
Yeah.
in terms of what's gone on within the Frontier organization as the turnover occurred. And we actually benefited from that change because they were trying to put a good step forward. I think they had, when they took over the phone fiasco and they had a bruised ego there, they came to us looking because they knew this area. I had had calls for years from local businesses going, how do I get high-speed internet? I don't know, because I can't get it either here, even for the city. And then Frontier came in and they put in, and really put in the effort to get us, because we went from 3 to 300.
Well, that's good.
Where?
This building right now.
That's not Frontier there, that's
But-
Verizon right there.
Yeah, but the point is, they didn't take it out to the kids, okay?
Yeah.
And
I
that's
understand
the
that.
heartbeat of the community, you know?
But they're getting that, at least from what I saw, they're getting it into, for us, what was completely absent, there was no high-speed internet anywhere here, especially at this end of the town. And that has changed when Frontier came in, where Verizon kept promising it but never provided it.
See, you should have cut a deal with the
Wait,
port.
Aaron.
You could have thrown a line over to the port, and they've got level 3 in there, and they got gigabit in the port.
Yeah. I think the most
Because we'll have
important,
access to all that fiber.
Right.
So,
I think the most important thing that we really have to look at as a city is that we're going to gigabit type speeds. We're not talking about going back, you know, and getting the megabits up a little bit.
Yeah, but just for us,
That was
I mean,
huge.
for years, we wanted additional service because we had a problem. I mean, I leveraged as many technologies as I could to deal with 3 megabits per second. And now we have got 300, and I'm like, oh, God, I have so much. What do I do with all this newfound wealth?
Yeah,
And you know, so we haven't gotten to the point because we got so proficient at dialing up that we're not ready for gigabit yet. We don't have those technologies in place where those needs, maybe they're coming because there's new opportunities, and if we're going to turn on Streetlights and have new video coming in, we have that need potentially arising, yeah. But for us right now, Frontier said, you need more than 300, just tell us and we'll just crank it up. We're at the point where, you know, I limited it to 300 because I just didn't want to waste the money. And we saved a significant amount going from 3 to 300.
so here's the of it. I live in Thousand Oaks. I've got 300 to my house, $50 a month.
Wow.
All right? Files. We want everyone to at least be at that point. And all of the, as he was explaining in his presentation, all these things that hook up to it, they all chew bandwidth up. Interesting, there was an interview on MSNBC recently, if you can believe one of their interviews, but I believe this one. They interviewed a bunch of kids, and they said, what would happen if your parents took your cell phone away from you? Just a morning interview, and the kid looks back in the screen and says, well, I just have to kill myself. And said it with conviction. But doesn't that say what's going on here, you know?
I see study after study where building property goes up in value when you get at least a gig into that property.
Yeah, yeah.
At least 1 gig.
Eight miles, 8 mile backup.
There's,
Yeah.
there's
In the
studies
swamp.
that go from 3%.
They don't have a beach,
Right.
8 mile backup.
So the Santa Monica, project that I worked on 15 years ago, they have a new name for it. The past 5 years, it's called Silicon Beach.
Right.
And it enlarged from the 10 city blocks that I was involved in. It now goes 30 blocks. And here's the part that Santa Monica loves. Highest rent in Southern California, and sold out.
A square foot.
Yeah.
So Bob's saying, why don't we have it right here? Why don't we have, Hueneme Beach right here, We can do it. It can be done.
The other thing that-
We don't have to go bankrupt doing it,
The other thing that high speed does is it attracts the younger crowd.
Who spend money.
Yeah, who spend money.
Right.
Because they want us older people, I include myself, I'm 53, so I'm, in the older crowd, but we just don't consume it like the younger crowd does. We
Yeah.
just don't. And so when
They don't
you
own
get-
anything, they don't have any mortgage payments, see?
Right.
They don't buy any, they use Uber everywhere, they don't have cars,
No,
they have more
no,
disposable money.
They live with their parents.
Yeah, yeah, right, yeah, some of them,
But
right.
you've currently got 2.
Right.
I have 2 of my 3 back with me right now, but one of them's just temporary. She's
Yeah.
moving to
Yeah, they all see that.
Washington
so-
D.C. But
But it's quite true. The whole thing's, what I was starting to say about Frontier, and I'm maybe sorry I picked on them, but it's, just look at Edison Company. Edison is no longer a power company. I went to a presentation they made to the Visita last year. That's the Ventura County Economic people. And the guy from Edison, Rudy, Rudy,
Yeah.
gets up and says, Edison is no longer in the power business. We sold it all to, who's the power company here now? Whoever. Anyway, we're in the distribution business. And it's like, well, Rudy, and I know Rudy a long time, how do you make money doing that? He says, oh, don't worry, we're going to figure it out, So next thing they started selling the light bulbs up, and I said, well, maybe this is a liquidation of this company, No, it's not that. But the point I'm trying to get to, these are all problems that 30 years ago, 20 years ago, our citizens in our cities didn't have to deal with this stuff. We didn't have to deal with the change out of a Verizon to a Frontier, When Jackie Irwin, who's our assemblyman over in our district, said to me, Terry, so what do you think about this changeover to Frontier from Verizon? And I said, so many people have asked me that. This is the best way for me to explain it to you. On the J.D. Power's list of the best, Verizon's consistently number 1. AT&T consistently number 2. CenturyLink consistently number 3. As far as what their analytics are, okay? Whatever I said, but for some reason Frontier isn't on their list. So, what does that mean, Jackie? And she called me up one day when we had the outage in Camarillo and half the businesses in Camarillo were out for 2 weeks and says, Terry, I've never had so many phone calls to my office. What the hell's going on? And I said, Jackie.
The phones are out. How are they calling their office?
On their cell phones. On their cell phone.
Come on now.
So what does Jackie do? She
that was a last century question.
Yeah, what people in Sacramento do. They had a hearing and they brought the president of Frontier in. This lady, they brought her in and said, "Hey, what's up? What's going on? What's going on?" And she, gave the party line and they let her go home and nothing changed. Changed for you though. That's good. I'm glad.
One of the important
It's a local
things.
thing though.
One of the important.
Very local. Very local. I'm sure you're seeing it all over the country. Yeah.
One of the important things that I've noticed, I work with the schools and the high schools and colleges, okay, and trying to get a broadcasting curriculum started a little bit. And what I have found out, that when we let these kids give them something, what we get back from them is beyond the concept, okay? I didn't know, I'm not in the broadcasting business. When I started this 9 years ago, I had to go to CLU, rent their truck, and hire their students to be able to hook up all the cameras, okay? It got to the point where a company came out with something called a TriCaster, which was a TV truck in a box for $40,000, okay? You know what these kids came and showed me? For $120, you get this thing called an Elgato, which they use as a game when they're stroking it because they want people to see them. And you get a 10-port bus with USBs. You could have a 10-camera shoot going right into a little computer. So the technology that, if we could bring them on into this technology and let them, we've got
We're
to,
talking to the wrong people here. We need to be talking to some geeks from over at the,
Right, high school.
well,
Grammar school.
No, we're
solve this problem for us. Oh, that's easy. We gotta get that in the truck.
well, we're gonna make, have you heard of High Tech High in San Diego? It's a high school where they basically just went and everything is in there. Well, Hueneme High School, I will say, is up for that task right now from the principal on down. So we've got such an opportunity here in what I'm gonna say is really one of the first cities in Ventura County, okay? This is where the bank started, where everything started. To really create that model so all the other cities see it, so it becomes Silicon County.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a smart county. And that to me is what our goal should be and what we're starting with.
Well, it's infectious, right? I mean, you get one, it's the keeping up with the Joneses effect, right?
Yeah.
But it is, I mean,
Sure.
because,
Well,
and there's synergies that
you know,
we
Chip,
gain across them too.
what I've lived in this area for 14 years, and what I've noticed is that when someone does something, a city does something, and it has a positive change and a positive impact on the citizens, and and then the neighboring cities look at it and say, well, wow, how the hell did they do this? We should be doing it, and then we see progress.
Right.
And there's been a few things we've seen that with, and hopefully this is going to be another one.
Well, and I think you teed up the part of the conversation really well when we were walking in here, which was, why am I spending my time here? And so, take this however you want, but, we classify opportunities in 3 different categories. So I've got the minnows, the basses, and the whales, right? And I'm actually spending more time now with the minnows because they've got the capability of making decisions, moving forward, and getting stuff done. The basses and the whales are so caught up in their administrative and bureaucracies and all this stuff. So
Yeah.
you guys know Columbus, right? 140, now over $200 million. How much of that have they spent? Almost none. Because they can't get out of their own way. They've got hundreds of millions of dollars sitting there waiting to be spent. And frankly, they're getting ready to lose it because the way that those grants are structured, they're all structured in tranches.
Time-wise.
And basically they have a certain amount of time to use each tranche, and they get evaluated on how well they used each of those tranches. They're getting ready to lose all of it because they haven't effectively used any of that stuff. So I've spent a ton of time there in Columbus and stuff. So I actually went to my account teams in Ohio, and I basically said, we're done with Columbus. I said, you go and find me the small communities in Ohio that need this type of stuff, that need to move forward and get stuff done.
Yeah.
I said, we'll spend our time there. I said, and we're gonna generate, revenue in substantial revenue in 2018 off of this stuff, and we're actually gonna do projects that are gonna add value to those communities. We're gonna help these underserved communities that no one else is helping.
And what's great about that is it's much more a self-generating market for you, because if you do that at the next little town over, then this little town is gonna go, well, we can do that.
Yeah.
But they're not gonna look at Columbus, even if you were successful, and say,
Right.
well, we can't.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
Columbus.
scale.
You
Yeah.
gotta have.
Different scale.
And so I'll generate and do more good dealing with 100 small towns than I will going chasing the whale.
One of my favorite minnows is, probably everybody knows, is the town of Vail, Colorado.
Yep.
I started out about 2 years ago. They have citywide Wi-Fi, not a big town, so it didn't really cost them that much to do it. And of course, they're tax-based. They've got a lot of money in the bank.
Right.
A little different, but nevertheless. So we became their Wi-Fi backhaul, basically. Instead of mesh, we became the mesh layer, if you will, to the Wi-Fi. And then we also became the backhaul for all of their high-end cameras. They have, you know, the 4K cameras that do the surround,
360, yeah,
they do the
360s.
360s,
Yeah.
chew up a ton of bandwidth, ton of throughput.
You guys also
So-
did the on-mountain backhaul too, right?
Yep, so we're now up to 8 different use cases in the city. Those two were the first two, we're now their disaster recovery plan. Anytime they get a fiber cut, they deploy us first because they can get us up, they can get the fiber restored, or the service, not the fiber, but the service restored within an hour. And then their fiber maybe takes a few more hours or days to restore, and that becomes a non-emergency situation. So the stress on the city has become much less, and the cost has become much less. And then we become, basically after the fiber's restored, they actually leave us in place, so that we're now a backup to the fiber. There's your
You're
fourth
an
use
avoidance
case.
factor, disaster
Fourth
avoidance.
use case,
Right,
right? And we've also become basically their tax base retention. Multiple businesses now rely on that free Wi-Fi. I know you guys probably don't want to hear that from a service provider standpoint, but the city is
Or the ILEC.
providing, you know,
Yeah, you don't care.
Yeah.
Avalanche
all the
on
coffee
Hill Street,
shops,
please.
all the coffee shops love it, you know, and all those, you know, shops love it.
Well, that would be important here, even at the beach, to make the beach a hot spot.
Absolutely.
Well,
You know,
proud of-
for
the reason why I
today.
mentioned the on-mountain Wi-Fi is we probably would not have deployed fiber to the mid-Vale and, you know, top of Vale Mountain, just because the cost relative to the amount, you know, the revenue off of
Yeah.
that circuit. So these guys could, you know, by putting it on a couple towers, boom.
One shot and you got 5 gigs to the top of, I mean, that's a fiber connection, right?
So, you know, because the best case scenario for us is that we ran it, we could run it along the towers, but that's still, you know, multiple, you know, miles of fiber just to run it on the lift towers. So whereas these guys, boom, so.
Yeah, so we're up to 8 now. One of and then we're doing a fiber loop as well. So the East Town and West Town, it's a linear fiber, and so we've now connected the 2 ends of the fiber to make a loop. So that you have anywhere a cut, you've got redundancy.
I got about 10% of everything you just said.
Sorry.
Vail.
Get that much?
I got Vail.
Vail, Colorado?
I've been to Vail.
Well, why don't you guys do some additional, based on what you know of the city, and we can answer any questions. Yeah, I was gonna say, Charlie's got a phone call.
I'm already late.
Thank you for coming, Charlie.
Good to
Good to
see
see
you
you.
again.
It's good to see you.
Bob, I gotta get by your thing here, so don't let me
Relevant
over. Hey. All right.
projects and opportunities would be for us. We'll do some internal thinking and talking with the staff, because I know there's probably at least 3 or 4 things that you've talked about that I think would be good fits for us.
Yep.
And obviously, in your thinking, you know, I don't think our financial situation is as doomsday as it sometimes gets portrayed, but I think it's going to be difficult to sell the city council in the next couple of years anyway on making at least general fund investments in this. So we are going to need to find things that are either self-supporting or close to self-supporting.
Yep.
Or grants.
Yeah, or grants.
Or
That's
grants,
right.
yeah.
Or a
Yeah.
combination thereof, right?
Or
And
public-private
again,
partnerships.
Right.
We want to get creative in terms of, you know, if you stovepipe the projects, you're going to end up spending more and not getting the value. So we tend to get very creative in terms of, you know, putting 2 or 3 projects. You know, I call it the, you know, when I call it the trifecta, it's because it's a, you know, that was a good combination for several customers of deploying technology together that had a combination of good value, and by deploying it all at the same time, you know, utilizing the same crews and the same project,
Your cost per comes down.
your cost to do it, right? But if you deployed each one of those independently, the value wouldn't have been there at all. You couldn't have.
Sure.
You know, you may have, one of them may have made sense and the other 2 didn't make sense by themselves, right? So we also have to get creative on, you know, again, it's the $500 truck rule, right? You want to minimize the amount of times that you're going and touching given assets and deploying different things out in the community.
Well, you basically cross the street and go into the port,
Yep.
which is different than this, you'll find that they've deployed quite a bit of technology, some of which is ready to be refreshed. Their video is ready to be refreshed. We talked about that. But the port is also dependent on the city because their agreement with the Navy is they have to be able to move all of their stuff off in 4 hours if there's an emergency. And so all of the stuff that comes off those ships is in warehouses and yards in your city, okay? And high value stuff, BMWs, things like that. Bananas, not so high value.
Maseratis driving by.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. That's their stuff. You see what I mean? So the city hasn't had the opportunity to upgrade themselves to protect this, you see? So it should be, I was hoping they'd have someone here today. They said they would, but I think we have to continue this with them. And also, through happenstance, I'm friends with both of the base commanders. And, they have interests also, and they have money.
Right.
Now, all right?
Right.
So that may be maybe the next meeting we have is to tie the leadership of all three together so that we could have a unified front. And then I have calls into Oxnard to see exactly how serious they are. That's the next city over. So it would be really interesting if we could tie it all together because the economics really help everyone if we're all doing the same thing at the same time.
Yeah, like I said, the more information you guys can
Yeah.
bring forward in terms of, state, local, power company, grants and all that type of stuff.
Well, maybe
that's
I should have
gonna-
had Edison here. I neglected to bring him, but
Well,
next
that's
time
part of
they
the
can
reason
be
I talk
here.
about the internal POE lighting,
Right.
because not only does it make sense just based on maintenance on the light fixtures and the electrical usage, you get a lot of grants from the power
Yeah.
company by
Right.
doing those power fixtures.
And they have a lot of money
So
for
you
that,
start,
yeah.
you start layering those things on, right? So
Yeah.
while you say, oh, well, we don't really need to do the lights in here, well, yeah, but if you did, that generates, X number of thousands of dollars that you can spend somewhere else in the
And
community.
in terms of the light posts, I mean, what you portrayed here is perfect for what their needs are because again, Oxnard's got one of the higher crime rates of the area, and so they have interest in situational awareness, okay, as do we, the city, being around this very valuable base with all these valuable assets. I mean, they must have 10,000 BMWs parked in that lot over there, and the next key is, I mean, what's that worth, I'm sure they're insured, but it's still responsibility for us to work together to find a safe solution.
Well, even more so, the whole area in West Ventura County is agriculture.
Yeah,
And what high-speed internet could be doing for farmland, okay, and agriculture to make it more efficient, we haven't even thought of some of the things that can be
One of
done.
the use case that we find in some of our integrators out in the valley use us for is to put cameras on the wellheads. Believe it or not, the drug addicts go out and steal all the copper and
Yeah.
all the metal and everything like that and shut down the wellheads. And that costs $20,000 to $30,000 to get it re-established.
Wow.
So
Wow.
they put a high-speed camera out there. They know they can see exactly who's coming, who's going. They've got it. It's like that Ring commercial. Hey, what are
Right.
you doing?
Right.
You're being watched.
and Frank, we have access, to all the oil companies. There's a lot of oil here. I mean, it's not well known, but I happen to know there's a lot of oil here,
Plenty.
They keep it to themselves, but I've gone to some of their political things where they're raising hell, and it's like, God, we have all these oil companies here? This is amazing. They're all little potent oil companies, but they're here, But the growers,
Right. Well, the thing you
This is a
don't
big
have a
thing
ton
here.
of is fresh water.
right.
Right.
Well,
So
but
that's-
you got plenty of water if we could figure out how to desalinate it and bring it on land.
Going back to your farms, one of the easiest use cases for the farms is putting in moisture sensors in the soil.
That's what
And so there's low bandwidth connectivity stuff
Mhm.
is perfect.
Laura, yeah.
For the LoRa connections is
Yep.
perfect. And again, you could deploy, one or two LoRa connections, for the entire city and covering even all the way out to
I'm
the
sure if you took
agriculture areas. and you
your
have-
biggest farmer here, they would definitely want to cooperate with us.
Yeah.
Just think of the law enforcement, the police. I mean,
Right.
to be able to just sit in their thing and see what's happening, or be something occurs, you know, all of a sudden the camera picks up and alerts somebody. I mean, artificial intelligence is where we're going too. So we could be a safer city.
Well, I read in that one report, right? I mean, 27%, 37% overtime, or whatever it was. You know, if you have cameras telling the police where to spend their time, then that's reducing your overtime on the police, right? So because now you need fewer people on duty at a given time.
Well, the city of London is a camera city. I don't know
Right.
if any of you've been there,
Yeah.
but you know, there's so many cameras, it's like, where isn't there cameras? You
There's
know?
5 cameras to every person.
Yeah, right, exactly.
The problem is the general
And,
public,
you know, aside from, you know, the
I don't
terrorist.
think we need to go to that density here.
Well, you know, America's not ready for this exactly, but virtually we have nothing. You know, and when you
I
look
think I
at,
saw three intersections that had cameras.
that was
on
about
them.
tickets though, and they're disabled because they can't run them anymore. you
Right.
know.
Because they don't have the bandwidth. or
We're in
they don't have the
California, man, you know, this,
They don't hold up in court anymore.
yeah.
Yeah, the judges were throwing the
But again-
citations out.
Again, you don't have to use them for citations, though. You use
Right,
them
use them for-
the,
yeah,
that's true,
but-
the-
Oxnard,
That's what I was saying
Oxnard,
before, is you can use all, I don't need special fancy cameras, right? I just need the video feed and
That's an
have a
idea.
clean video feed.
Maybe they can be reused, you know, redeployed.
Yep.
Yeah, good idea, Chip. You know, you're right, they're sitting there doing, you know, looking at nothing, yeah.
And there's
So-
funding for those.
I'm sorry?
I said, and there's funding for those, because we did enough one.
Yeah,
Exactly, so.
yeah, the license plate readers and
So instead of,
And it was effective.
instead of, you know, you're identifying
So
stolen vehicles and other, you know, things, right, with those same cameras. You're not
Yeah.
issuing citations, but you're deploying.
Bank robbery happens, and one of those entrances onto a freeway or
Right.
a major thoroughfare.
So you've got, you can capture all that video feed.
San Francisco MTA, you know, the busing system there,
Right.
they're using our system now in major deployment, basically to capture, first of all, intersection cameras everywhere to capture, you know, traffic control, et cetera, to get, you know, cars moving through. But for the bus lanes as well, they've actually got it now to where if you get in the bus lane in front of a bus, you're getting a ticket.
Wow.
License plate recognition, ticket goes out, camera catches you in a bus lane in front of a bus, automatic ticket. So,
Big brother.
Well, I think we covered a lot of ground. I'm sure you're on information overload. Thank you
Yeah,
very
that's
much.
all right.
Yeah, we'll get the presentation
thank
out to
you-
you guys
thank
as
you,
well, so you have it for.
Chip, thank you
Right.
for your time. Hopefully you learned a little bit more than we knew when we got here. But I think, you know, as I said in the beginning, I think CenturyLink's a great partner, and I have a long personal history with them, and you know, all successes. So that's why would I not want to bring them forward when I know they know what they're doing? You know?
yeah, no, we were really encouraged when we heard it was CenturyLink because obviously that's a name that we've all heard of and
Sure.
there's some stability there.
and we're actually doing business together as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So
So
it's just starting.
yeah.
So I like your idea.
New relationship?
You know, kind of huddling with your team, try to, you know, touch base on those areas that you think might be, you know, first project types of efforts. Because, you know, you can think real wide and deep and then nothing really moves. But I think what we need to do is sort of focus it in, narrow it in on a couple of key pilot areas that we can start in
Right.
and get something going. Because again, it will snowball. And then the use cases always come, you know, once your initial projects are deployed, and then it's amazing what you can use to leverage that already deployment. So I think we should probably get together sooner than later, just so that's all fresh. Maybe within the week or so, and we'll kind of put our brains together on what specific areas we might be able to move forward, or what are viable.
Great.
Yep.
So
I like it.
in terms
So,
of
you know,
solving
Frank-
problems, you guys know-
Frank's your local guy here
Yeah.
from a CenturyLink side as well, so, and he's got good access to me, so.
So thank you for the opportunity, we appreciate that. We welcome comments or questions, and then we'll schedule through Terry some follow-up.
All right, excellent.